Hello, my friends. Welcome. Happy Memorial Day to you. Buenos dias. I just wanted to take a look at this and present something to you for us to look at. This is an outstanding opportunity for us to observe information being presented by what is mainstream media, what is assumed to be trusted, quote unquote, and information being presented by them, and then looking at the other side of the coin at information that has also been presented by quote unquote trusted sources, and what contradictions can we find between them? And does this make any sense at all based on what they're saying? And is there also something else that we can correlate that's not sitting right in front of us, but is available for us from other sources and any other thing that we can research that we can connect this to in a different way as well? So let's figure out what might be nonsense and what it might actually be. And we will start that with this first clip.
She's Martha Raddatz on what this means. Martha, what have you learned?
David, this has been a significant concern for the Pentagon. It was last Thursday that Russia launched this satellite into low Earth orbit, a satellite that the Pentagon does believe is capable of attacking other satellites in low Earth orbit. This video from Russia's military appearing to show that launch. While there's no indication that Russia plans on attacking other satellites, and it is not the first time Russia has done this, when asked if the Russian counter-space weapon posed a threat to U.S. satellites, a Pentagon spokesman said it's a counter-space weapon in the same orbit as a U.S. government satellite. The deputy U.S. ambassador to the UN is calling this launch troubling. David?
Troubling indeed. You'll continue to track it for us, Martha. Thank you.
Okay, so we have listened to ABC News tell us about a concern concerning involving attacking other objects like satellites or technology in low Earth orbit. Russia launching something that could be weaponized. So that's point number one. So that is one thing we're going to note. And the second is the way that they're describing this, and they keep saying low Earth orbit. So as they keep implying this, they're also saying that one is in the same orbit space as the other. So in low Earth orbit is where they both are, the satellites and this device that they think is a problem. So the way that they're discussing this, they're also implying there are other levels that can be orbited. So other than low Earth orbit, they're implying there are higher levels of orbit or different areas of orbits. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a discussion point. So if you have one, you have to have others. So that is point number two. And we're going to try and figure out what sense does that make compared to what we're about to hear now. And now we have this.
Never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the Sona Pearl what stars we could see. I don't remember seeing any.
You can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
I don't remember seeing any.
NASA says that we can't leave low Earth orbits.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
The kinds of technologies that we're testing out on Space Station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit.
Early in the next decade, the set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
And this is really the beginning, I think, of human beings leaving low Earth orbit.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace
is that the Earth is a closed system. We
Okay.
cannot leave the Earth.
NASA tells us that they lost the 1960s technology that took us to the moon.
I can go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
The ultimate destination is Mars. See, if you gave me all the money in the federal budget today, I could not get a human to Mars.
I think that what you're doing is taking a shot in the dark. You have no way of knowing if any commercial entity will ever be able to put a man in orbit, no matter how much money you throw at them. What you're doing is you're taking NASA's manned space program and making it a faith-based initiative. I yield the rest of my time.
NASA also says that they lost the telemetry data for the moon missions.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
Unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it's still.
Hello, my friends. We're going to do a quick recap on this part. This is from another presentation that is already in the playlist, but this so that we can plug it into this video that we're looking at now. So just recap, this is Wernher von Braun, NASA scientist, Operation Paperclip, worked for the Nazis in Germany, smuggled over after the war, or toward the end of the war, worked for NASA, credited with taking the Apollo to the moon, so on and so forth, okay? Toward the end of his life, he was actually telling us a few things, as you can see on the screen. As we discussed in that whole, you can go back and watch the full video regarding him and Carol Rosin, who was the person that was interviewing in this part that we're going to look at here. Let me see if I can shrink this a bit so you can see this all the way. There we go. Okay. So this, so Wernher von Braun, basically deathbed confessional type stuff. Okay. And it's published in this document here called Wernher von Braun's Last Words to the World. I'm just going a quick recap so you can tie this in together. So in this interview, there were some stuff, other things discussed, but primarily the point we need to see is this one. So Carol Rosin is speaking from her conversation with von Braun on his deathbed, and she's being interviewed, so she's the one who is answering questions. So you see the cue. She is the answer. So the interviewer's asking, is this why he gave you an enemies list that would be perpetuated? So basically, he gave her a list of things that should be expected in the future that are basically psyops or attacks that are going to take place, and why they were concerning to him and why he wanted to let her know. One of the primary and biggest ones, and the reason we're looking at this part, basically that, as you see at the top, he repeated this continuously. He would say that starting where I entered in the industry with the supposed Russian threat, so von Braun's talking about himself entering into the industry of science, rocket science, and at that time there was a supposed Russian threat that never actually existed. Russians were made to be the enemy. Then there would be terrorists, third world country threats, then there would be an asteroid threat. We've seen all of those through mainstream media, and all of those have taken place since that time. So then he goes on to say, they might even say to us that we should try to influence the public into believing that there are many reasons for why we should put weapons in space. There might be a reason to protect our assets in space. So he is telling us that there is a propaganda potential for this to be an agenda item. Okay? And the real one who's always holding off on and it would always cause tears in his eyes. And it was apparently the last card in the deck, and he would call it the alien card, the extraterrestrial card. And so he's saying that these, in other words, all these enemies, supposed enemies, that are presented to us along the way throughout all these different operations and things to expect, it's all a lie, with the intention of seizing high ground, keeping truth from us. So he's letting us know that we should expect that Russia is being made to be the bad guy, and that the time will come when we will be influenced, the public be influenced into believing that there is some necessity for us to put weapons in space. And we need to protect assets in space, i.e. satellites, things of this nature, right? So, again, and this is coming from Wernher von Braun, that on his deathbed revealed some things that he thought we should know. So, plug this in into what we just looked at, and one huge contradiction between what they're presenting us, why it's a threat, why it's a problem, and who's doing it, and why that's a problem, and that it's in the same orbit. It's within the same orbit. It's within the same low Earth orbit. Well, based on everything that NASA and all of those videos that we got to see, they've already told us low Earth orbit is as far as we can go. So, all things satellites and what they're describing as their weaponry or whoever being in low Earth orbit means it's right there with everything else. So, they're making it seem like there is something in a territory that shouldn't be there because we should have stuff there and they shouldn't, or that there is some other area where these things could be. But they're not. They're all in the same place, as they've already said. So, on one hand, they're telling you the lie, and on the other hand, they're telling you the truth. So they have to do both at the same time, like we discussed. So, plug this in to what we just looked at and start connecting some dots. Peace and love, friends.